Chunking text is a great way, it's a great strategy for you to use when you are presented with a really long article or a really big piece of text that you have to read. All you do is preview the text and kind of decide where it makes sense to break it up. Use the text features to help you. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. The whole point of this is that by breaking it up into smaller sections, you have smaller sections to work with, and instead of trying to summarize like a 10-page article, you're just trying to summarize a few paragraphs at a time. It makes it more manageable for you to work with. Let's go ahead and look at the Noble Experiment. Obviously, our very first chunk that we're going to start with is right here at the beginning. And if you preview this, it's talking about Branch Rickey. And Branch Rickey was a baseball manager. He managed a baseball team. So this is a whole story talking about Mr. Rickey as a manager. Here is a text feature that I was talking to you about. That big yellow B shows us that there's a new section kind of starting, but I decided not to make a new chunk here because look who this section is about. It's about Branch Rickey. Still talking about his role and his involvement with wanting to desegregate baseball. Okay, so I did here. Again, we are going to let the text features help us. Right here, we have another one of those yellow letters. It's a B again, which is interesting. And now we've got more of Jackie Robinson's perspective when he was with the Monarchs, talking about his experience. So it talks about his perspective on integrating baseball and what he was seeing at that time. Then we move on to 1945 in Chicago. He's playing ball and he gets approached to interview with Mr. Rickey right here. So I made that a separate chunk. Even though we do have another one of these gold letters right here, we're still kind of talking about, it's still talking about Jackie Robinson's point of view and this interview process getting started. So I kept that as part of my second chunk. Now I've got another letter, and you notice that I switched chunks here. This is my third chunk because this is where the interview process starts. Jackie Robinson meets Branch Rickey and is describing what he looks like and how he's talking to him, and they start to talk about this prospect, Jackie being the first African-American player in the National League, in actual baseball, and not just in the Negro Leagues. And then I went ahead and switched my chunks over to a fourth one right here, even though we don't have a text feature to show us that, just because there's this abrupt switch. Suddenly, Mr. Rickey is getting in Jackie Robinson's face, and he's asking him, do you have the guts? So they start to switch the conversation about how this experience will affect Jackie Robinson and how it will affect his family. They talk about how it's not just going to be the box score that is going to be looked at for Jackie, not just his stats, but they're going to look at how he is and what he is. And then they get into this whole thing about fighting back, and is Jackie going to fight back when he's faced with racism and when he's picked on, when he's taunted. And so that just continues until the very end, and this little thing here signifies the end of the article, the end of the story. So I broke it out into 4 chunks. My chunk 3 was a lot smaller than the other 4 chunks, but that's okay. They don't have to be the exact same length. I just like to look at what each section is about and try to group them together according to. So finally, after you read, once you've broken out into chunks, then you're going to read one chunk at a time. So I would want to go back and read my first chunk, and I would stop, and then I will summarize what I have come up with for that particular chunk. Then I would do that for chunk 2. I would go back, read chunk 2, stop, summarize what I came up with for that chunk. This way, when you finish reading, you've got some shorter summaries to work with instead of just one huge still text that you still are not really sure what it means because you haven't chunked it. And plus, as you stop and summarize for yourself as you read, it gives you a better understanding because you're forcing yourself to stop and think along the way, which is really important for comprehension. So I hope this video has helped you understand how to chunk your text. You might now get out your copy of the Noble Experiment and see if your chunks match mine. It's totally okay if they don't. This is kind of a personal thing, and where you broke up the text is because it's probably going to be a little bit different than where I broke it up. The important thing is that you had some reasons behind where you broke it up, and you didn't just do every single paragraph. That's not going to work for a text this long. You'll have way too many chunks. It'll take you way too long. So if you have questions about where I did my chunking after watching this video, just come and ask, come talk to me, and I'll be happy to work with you one-on-one.